Aidan liked order. His life was predictable: morning coffee, literature classes, work at the bookstore, and quiet nights reading in his dorm. Theo was chaos. Loud, charming, and frustratingly attractive. The type of guy who thrived in crowds, the life of every party. Unfortunately, he was also Aidan's roommate. They had lived together for almost a year now, existing in a strange in-between. Not quite friends, not quite strangers. Just two people cohabiting. But one night changed everything. It was supposed to be a normal party, one Aidan had no intention of attending until his friends dragged him there. He was on the verge of leaving when he spotted Theo across the room, laughing in that easy, carefree way of his. Aidan had never been jealous of Theo. Not until he saw him flirting with someone else. He told himself it didn't matter. But when Theo eventually found him, already half-drunk, something shifted. "You've been avoiding me all night," Theo murmured, cornering Aidan against the kitchen counter. Aidan scoffed. "I didn't even know you were looking for me." Theo smirked. "I always notice you." Before Aidan could react, Theo leaned in, lips brushing his in the briefest of kisses. Aidan froze. It wasn't a deep kiss, not demanding, just a soft press of lips that sent his heartbeat into overdrive. When Theo pulled back, he grinned like it was nothing. Like Aidan wasn't completely thrown off balance. Aidan spent the next week avoiding Theo. It was childish, but he couldn't help it. Every time Theo walked into the room, his chest tightened. Every time Theo spoke to him, his mind flashed back to that stupid, fleeting kiss. Theo, of course, noticed. "You're being weird," Theo said one afternoon as Aidan sat on his bed, reading. "I'm always like this." Theo plopped down next to him, completely invading his space. "Not with me." Aidan swallowed, keeping his eyes on his book. "You think too much," Theo muttered. "It was just a kiss." Aidan stiffened. "I know. Then why are you acting like it meant something?" Aidan shut his book. "Did it?" Silence. Theo studied him, a flicker of something unreadable in his expression. Then he chuckled, ruffling Aidan's hair like nothing had changed. "Relax, roommate. You're overthinking." And just like that, Theo brushed it off. Aidan told himself that was a good thing. So why did it feel like a loss? And before Aidan could say anything, Theo was gone, back to the party as if nothing had happened. Life returned to normal. Sort of. Except now, Theo seemed more present. He lingered in their dorm longer, choosing to study with Aidan instead of partying. He found excuses to touch him, casual bumps, fingers brushing when passing things. And the worst part? Aidan liked it. But he wouldn't admit it. Not even when Theo rested his head on Aidan's lap one night while they watched a movie. Not even when Theo started stealing his sweaters, wearing them like it was the most natural thing in the world. Not even when their gazes lingered for too long, words left unsaid. Aidan wasn't possessive. At least, that's what he told himself. But when Theo started flirting with someone else at a party, laughter spilling from his lips like he didn't have a care in the world, Aidan saw red. He downed his drink and turned away. It wasn't his problem. Theo could do whatever he wanted. But then Theo found him later, smirking. "You're mad." "I'm not." "You are." Aidan exhaled sharply. "Do whatever you want, Theo." Theo stepped closer, gaze burning. "I want to know why it bothers you." Aidan clenched his fists. "It doesn't." Theo hummed. "Liar." He leaned in, too close, his breath warm against Aidan's skin. "Say it. Say you don't care." Aidan's throat was dry. He couldn't say it. Because it would be a lie. The tension became unbearable. They fought more, snapped at each other over stupid things. But beneath the anger was something else. Something neither of them was ready to face. Until one night, Theo kissed someone right in front of Aidan. And Aidan finally snapped. The moment they were alone, Aidan shoved Theo against the dorm door, eyes blazing. "What the hell are you doing?" Theo smirked, though there was no real amusement in his eyes. "Having fun." Aidan exhaled sharply, his hands trembling. "You're playing with me." Theo's smirk faded. "Maybe I am." Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken things. Then, suddenly, Theo's hands were on Aidan's waist, pulling him closer. Aidan's breath hitched. "What are you?" Theo cut him off with a kiss. But this time, it wasn't soft. It was deep, desperate, filled with everything they had been avoiding. When they finally pulled away, Theo rested his forehead against Aidan's. "No more running," Theo whispered. Aidan swallowed. "No more games." For once, they agreed. Things didn't change overnight. They still bickered. Still tested each other. But now, their touches lingered. Their kisses deepened. Their nights turned into whispered conversations and stolen moments in the dark. Neither of them said "I love you." Not yet. But love was there, in the way Theo reached for Aidan without thinking. In the way Aidan learned to let Theo in. In the way they finally stopped pretending. Some rules were meant to be broken. And Aidan was finally okay with that. They continued their routine, classes, late-night study sessions, stolen moments of tension so thick it was suffocating. But now, every brush of skin, every unintentional glance carried something heavier. It was no longer a game. It was something neither of them knew how to handle. One night, Theo came back late, smelling like cheap beer and cigarette smoke. Aidan was already in bed, pretending to read, when Theo collapsed onto his own mattress with a sigh. "Another party?" Aidan asked, unable to keep the irritation from his voice. Theo turned his head, a smirk tugging at his lips. "Miss me?" Aidan scowled. "You reek." Theo laughed, but there was something off about it. "Relax, I didn't kiss anyone this time." Aidan froze. Theo was watching him, waiting for a reaction. When Aidan didn't give one, Theo sighed and turned onto his side, facing the wall. Aidan stared at the ceiling, heart pounding. This was getting dangerous. Days turned into weeks. They danced around each other, pushing and pulling, testing limits neither of them wanted to acknowledge. Until one night, it all came crashing down. It happened after another party. Aidan wasn't even supposed to be there, but his friends had dragged him along. He had planned to leave early, until he saw Theo in the corner of the room, talking to some guy. Laughing. Flirting. Something inside Aidan snapped. He didn't think. Didn't hesitate. He grabbed a drink, downed it, and forced himself to look away. But Theo noticed. And he pushed. For the rest of the night, Theo made sure to stay close to that guy, his touches lingering, his laughter a little too loud. Aidan clenched his jaw, his nails digging into his palm. It was petty. A test. And Aidan was losing. When Theo finally came over, there was a victorious glint in his eyes. "You're mad." Aidan scoffed. "I don't care what you do." Theo leaned in, lips barely brushing against Aidan's ear. "Liar." Something inside Aidan snapped. He grabbed Theo by the wrist and pulled him outside, away from the crowd. The air was cold, but Aidan's blood was boiling. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he hissed. Theo grinned. "Funny, I was going to ask you the same thing." Aidan's hands clenched. "You think this is funny?" Theo stepped closer. "No. I think it's pathetic. You act like you don't care, but the second someone else touches me, you lose your mind." Aidan's breath came out sharp. "You're the one playing games." Theo tilted his head. "Am I?" The tension was unbearable. The space between them too small. Then, before Aidan could think, before he could stop himself, he grabbed Theo by the collar and kissed him. Hard. Theo didn't hesitate. His hands tangled in Aidan's shirt, pulling him closer, deepening the kiss until all rational thought disappeared. They stumbled back against the wall, Aidan pressing into him, his hands roaming, his breath uneven. When they finally pulled apart, Theo's eyes were dark, his lips swollen. "No more pretending," Theo murmured. Aidan swallowed. "No more games." The problem with falling was that you had no control over the landing. They didn't talk about the kiss. Again. But this time, the silence felt different. Heavier. Aidan didn't pull away when Theo casually rested his hand on his knee during study sessions. Theo didn't flinch when Aidan reached for him absent-mindedly. It was new. Fragile. And absolutely terrifying. One night, Theo climbed into Aidan's bed without a word. Just curled up beside him, resting his head on Aidan's chest. Aidan didn't push him away. Didn't question it. He just held him. Aidan wasn't sure when it became real. When the tension between them turned into something solid. But he knew it was real when Theo stopped flirting with others. When the teasing turned softer, the touches more intentional. And now, here he was, lying in bed on a lazy Sunday morning, Theo's warm weight draped over him, their legs tangled under the sheets. Sunlight streamed through the dorm window, casting golden hues over Theo's skin. He was still half asleep, his face buried against Aidan's chest, his fingers absent-mindedly tracing circles over Aidan's hip. It was quiet. Peaceful. Aidan ran his fingers through Theo's messy hair, his chest tightening at the simple intimacy of it. Theo hummed sleepily. "You're staring." Aidan smirked. "You like it." Theo grinned, cracking one eye open. "I do." His voice was rough with sleep, and it sent a shiver down Aidan's spine. They hadn't said "I love you" yet. Not in words. But Aidan felt it in the way Theo pulled him closer in his sleep. In the way he reached for him in crowded rooms, like a quiet reassurance that he was there. In the way their fights weren't about pushing each other away anymore, but about fighting to stay. Theo lifted his head slightly, his lips brushing against Aidan's jaw. "You thinking too much again?" Aidan huffed. "Shut up." Theo laughed, pressing a slow, teasing kiss to Aidan's throat. "Make me." Aidan flipped them over, pinning Theo beneath him, a smirk playing on his lips. "You really don't know when to quit, do you?" Theo grinned up at him, eyes dark with something dangerous. "Not when it comes to you." Aidan kissed him, slow and deep, taking his time, letting himself feel everything he'd once been too afraid to admit. No more rules. No more unspoken feelings. Just them. And for the first time, Aidan wasn't afraid to fall. Because this time, Theo was falling with him.